Hello, Kuukuwa. How are you?
I'm good. How are you, Prince?
I'm good. I'm doing well. Thank you for being with us today. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. So today's episode of People Who Inspire, I'm excited to be having a conversation with Kuukuwa Manful, as some of you already know her, and also with a profile that I shared with the work that she's been doing. So today we are going to not just look at architecture and some of the projects that Kuukuwa is doing, but we also get to know a little bit about Kuukuwa, what her passion has been, and what her journey has been so far. So I'm excited to have you, Kuukuwa.
Thank you. I'm excited and a little scared of the passion question.
Oh, don't be scared. No, we're gonna have a good time. I'm pretty sure of that. How's your weekend going so far? All good?
Yes, really nice. Can't complain.
Yeah, I think the sun is up now, so it should be quite cool to like stroll and do all that.
Yes, it really is.
Yeah. So today we're going to understand a little bit about what your journey, first of all, like what your journey has been, as I mentioned. And for me, what is cardinal is that when we look at success, the primary definition most of us are used to is that we look at people who we think have arrived, people who have at the zenith of whatever profession or whatever they're doing. And so we tend to kind of recycle the same stories a lot of times on most platforms when we try to talk to successful people. But for the people who inspire platform, what I try to do is that my definition really of success is really in the journey. So I'm particularly fascinated by the journeys that people have gone through. Even if they see themselves as not yet arrived, I'm still interested in the backstory, the sleepless nights, the kind of behind the scenes work that they put into whatever they're doing. So here on this platform, I interview, people from different backgrounds, different age groups, and so forth, because I see that everyone has a story to tell, and each story has the propensity to kind of inspire someone who is watching the People Who Inspire series. So today I would like to know, Kuukuwa, first of all, to kick the conversation starting, I mean, where did you grow up? And can you just, let's say, tell me how your early days or early childhood was like? Were you the typical nerd or always reading, the sharks, as some of you, some of us, use that term a lot. So how was it like really growing up?
I would try to remember. I don't really remember a lot from childhood, to be honest. I don't know why. My memory is my grandma used to tease me that my memory only works for my studies.
But you grew up in Accra, or like where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Medina. I'm a Medina girl.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where I grew up. So I grew up in Medina. I went to a number of schools, but like kind of like my primary education was at Presec Staff Primary School, secondary school St. Andrews, which is the JSS of Presec Staff Primary School, all in Medina. Yeah, so as to how I was, like, I think it's people who knew me that can answer it best. Because I don't think I saw myself as a shark or booklong. I did love to read.
I think to say that you did love to read is an understatement. Knowing you, man, you've read. Hey, Charlie.
But yeah, I also love to play games. So I used to do that as well. I was like really into video games at a point in time. Well,
wow.
Who am I kidding? I still am.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And what's your favorite game?
I'm currently playing Dragon Builders 2,
okay.
Which is like a game that's like, it's a world building sandbox game. It's like a cross between Minecraft and yeah, let me not go too into the video game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I like doing that as well. What else did I like doing? Yeah, I like to read. I like to play games.
Wow. So I mean, let's say from JHS you went to Wesley Girls.
Yes.
And what did you study at Wesley Girls?
So I did general science at Wesley Girls, and honestly I did it because that's just what like my teachers and my parents said I should do. I actually wanted to go to Hebrew Girls.
Really?
Yeah. The reason is a silly reason that only people close to me know. But I really didn't think that much or that deeply about secondary school or where I was going to go. So I wanted to go to Hebrew Girls, but my dad went to Asante. Dad was like, basically, yeah, you're going to Wesley Girls. I didn't really want to go because at the time, like, my aunties and kind of like relations that I knew went to Wesley Girls, I thought they were kind of stuck up. Always telling me to sit up straight and walk straight and that kind of thing. I was like, what is this, you know? So I was not really excited about it, but also it's not like I didn't want to go. I was like, it's just a school, so I'm going. So yeah, when I did general science again, it's because that's what my teachers were like, oh yeah, you'd be good at it. And I didn't have like any specific interest. Like I think I could have really read any course there. Yeah.
Okay. And so what influenced your choice in studying architecture at KNUST?
Okay, yeah, this is an interesting story. So again, like typical Kuukuwa style. At the end of, because like in secondary school in Gehe, like even from Form 1, like people knew like I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be an engineer and stuff, and I'm like, okay, I like biology, but I still like this. I like a lot of things. I could do anything. So it was getting to the time where we had to buy forms. I remember, and then again, like my parents were like, okay, yeah, now you have to like figure out what you want to do, right? And I wasn't sure. Like all I knew was that I didn't want to do medicine, even though my father wanted me to do it. And I think it was more because like it was more out of rebellion than anything. Again, I didn't have any strong feelings towards anything. But I thought one of my friends was going to see a guidance counselor in Legon. And I followed her just to see her off. And I remember this. His name was Mr. Crawford, or his name is Mr. Crawford. So she went and she spoke to him, and after that he was like, oh, and you two, what are you doing here? And I was like, and we just had a conversation, and I was like, yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm probably going to do engineering because it's the closest to, because I used to like taking apart like electronics and putting them back together. Sometimes they'll work again, sometimes they won't work. I'll get into trouble, whatever. But yeah, I was saying that, and he was asking me what I like doing. I was like, oh, and I like to draw as well. What subjects do you like? I was like, oh, I like all of them. I also like physics. And he was like, oh, okay, go to the library and look up architecture. So I went to the library and then I looked up architecture. Like I asked and I looked in the encyclopedia and everything. I just read as much as I could find. I was fascinated. I was like, oh yeah, this I saw it as a thing that combined multiple fields of knowledge and interest and also creativity. So I was hooked from there.
Wow. I think that's really that's really interesting. I mean, it tells me, for example, let's say the importance of having some form of like counseling regarding these things, because like, I mean, just like yourself, I went through the motion, your parents will tell you, oh yeah, go and do science. Oh yeah, this course is good. There's money in this, just go and do it. But there was no clear, let's say, guidance per se. Yeah. So that's really interesting. So I mean, it could have been that if, let's say, you hadn't met that counselor, we would have been seeing MD at the end of your name.
Yeah, I don't think it would have. Maybe it would have changed my path a bit, but like I think fundamentally, just like the things that I like, the way I am and the things that I value and question, like I don't think I'd have, even if I did medicine, I don't think I'd have followed the conventional path, same as I haven't followed the conventional architecture path as being trained in Ghana, right? So I don't think so. Like I do wish people gave children more room to discover what they like and what they are interested in, rather than telling them what they should do. Because you do find a lot of people who have no interest in certain courses, but are pushed there, not because their parents are wicked or that kind of thing, but like, again, like you said, you're worried there's money here, there's no money here, that kind of thing. But yeah, I wish it were different and people had more room to find out what they like.
Yeah. I can fully relate with that. I have conversations sometimes with some of my medical doctor friends, and I mean, there are a couple of them who, if let's say given a better alternative, are willing to leave the profession. I mean, some of them are like hyper realistic artists, like they can draw, like, and that's their passion. You can tell they are doing this like day and night. But I mean, it's what we have, and I think in general we need to change this narrative for our children. Someday. Yeah, and so like whilst you're at KNUST, right? I also realized that you were involved in different kind of projects. I mean, you spent I think 6 or 7 years on KNUST campus, right?
Yeah, 7 years.
7 years. Wow. 7 years here in University campus. And can you tell me, how was your time at KNUST? How did it shape your thinking as an architect now? Like, I know, I mean, we'll get into your Oxford days and all that, but the 7 years at KNUST, how did it shape, your perspective as an architect today?
Yeah, it was really so I came to architecture from general science. So there are a lot of things that were just brand new to me. Right. I hadn't like taken like anything in like drawing or art, like a serious class in it. So it was kind of like new, but it was also really exciting and just like reading. So I was one of those people that actually read the books on the reading list. But yeah, I was like really into it and really fascinated by it, and also like some of my lectures as well, just like listening to them and talking to them after class. Yeah, I was really curious, and yeah, like you said, I did a lot of things, but yeah, I was like also not trying to just only be in like my class and only my course, right? So part of it was like also boredom or just doing the same thing all the time. But also like, yeah, I think I'm like really curious, and I like to just like go and learn and see what's out there. I think it's how we met, right? Isn't this
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like I also like to like talk to other people and ask what they are learning.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, what's happening here? Yeah, I've even like gone and sat in like a class. What class was it? I went to sit in the class, and then like yeah, the lecturer was like, Are you in this course or something? I'm so scared.
This intruder.
I was so scared because I thought they wouldn't notice, but yeah. But yeah, I really like meeting some of like the lecturers that I met were like really influential, and just like talking to them and how they approach things. So I think like people like Mrs. Normaline, oh yeah, just her approach to like the learning and teaching of architecture. Then people like Dr. Kutinsang.
Oh yes, Dr. Kutin.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, third year was a revelation. Just like he was just so encouraged. Like he really used to encourage us to like read and think and challenge things, which was really, really, really helpful in the Ghanaian context, because we don't do that a lot. We allow yeah, students to question and challenge and explore a lot. So that was really useful. And then Prof. Interfo as well, like history. History was one of my favorite courses. Yeah, just like discovering what came before.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, for me, I mean, when I got to know you and Sapon, like I felt that like finally, like I've met people who like understand me. Like, how like you're going through the system, you have course mates, like personally, even my course mates, I did not gel so much with them because okay, so in my own personal journey, I got a bit disillusioned with the building technology. So before I came to KNUST to read that course, in my mind, I had watched these mega structures and stuff. So like in my mind, we're going to tell you some wild things because like that was the mindset I came with. And then the first year we're giving drawing boards to be drawing the desk in the studio and stuff. So like, and because like typically I did technical art and fan film, so like those things were like basic. Like I felt I was like, why are these guys wasting my time? When are we going to start doing the big things? So I don't know from your point of view, like, did you go through such moments where you felt, I mean, the architecture course could be run in a particular way to unearth more potential, from you or from your course mates and the kind of people you worked with? Did you have such moments? I personally did anyway. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can imagine because you did technical.
Yeah.
You already did technical drawing and stuff in
Exactly. Yeah.
in enhancement, but like me, I came from science, right? So I hadn't.
Yeah.
I hadn't.
Okay.
The drawing board was when I was doing what's the thing in
Pre-tech.
Pre-tech, yeah, pre-technical skills.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that one we used to we would draw a bisector line.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was new to me. So I enjoyed like a lot of the early stuff, the drafting and stuff.
Oh, okay.
I did enjoy it. But it wasn't, I think it was third year or was it second year when I started in Sapon. We keep talking about Sapon, you might know Sapon. Yeah. My colleague and collaborator and co-conspirator. I think we started watching TED Talks. And then we started watching design studios from other places. And that's when we were like, oh wow, what would it be to learn in this way or to be taught this way, right? Because they weren't a lot of the other foreign school design studios, and we're watching lots of American ones, so like Princeton, Harvard, Yale. They were not so concerned because like a lot of our studio programs were very real. So it's like design a 3-bedroom house, right? And you are designing it and you're supposed to have some idea of how it will be built, right?
Yeah.
But it's not that. Like in all my time here, I've never seen a studio program like that. Unless they do like one of the, what do they call them? Abroad, the school abroad or year abroad things when they come to like go to usually an African country for some time and then they give specific things. But even that, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of space for being experimental and stuff. But I understand it, like coming from both sides, former student and teacher now, I understand why in Ghana the curriculum will be structured towards realistic things in our country, right? Sometimes it's parents as well. I remember listening to a talk by Patrick Iwao Fashesi, right? And talking about just some of the questions you get from parents, like what's the value in this liberal arts thing? Where would they work? Yes, like it's why I'm like so passionate about politics and the economy and stuff, because there's some basic things, if you fix certain problems will just go away. Right? If there was accessible healthcare, there was like decent pay and stuff. Like if you don't have to worry about what your children will eat, what will happen if you get sick with like a liver disease, right? Certain things will not bother you so much. It will not be life and death, the job you get or the job you do. But yeah, I end up like just to say that like I know exactly where you're coming from, but with the benefit of hindsight, it's like I know why it is the way it is.
Okay.
Our goals are different.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I saw, that like sometimes the goal of the students, the goal of the parents, and the goal of the institution are all completely, they're divergent. So now the question would be if, I mean, a stronger institution would have a way of somehow ensuring a coalescing of these goals at some point in the study, by, like you said, some lecturers would encourage you, would support you and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, I get what you mean as well. I mean, now, like you said, having been in the position of also teaching, I think you can appreciate both ends. Yeah. But that was my personal journey. Sometime in the future, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was also there. Right now, I'm talking with the benefits of hindsight. But I also I also admired and wanted different things. And I wish it were that way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when we were very much into TED Talks. I mean, I think we sometimes I don't underestimate really the power of the TED Talks that we watched at the time. I mean, I think that was like, it changed, like you and Sapon, like it changed my mind. I was like, whoa, like, so there are people like this, like people are thinking, like,
yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah. That was really exciting times, and I think that was one of the main motivation why we organized the TEDx KNUST, and you being, I think I did a YouTube video and I kept giving you and Sapon shout outs, because like for me that was essential, getting people who understand like the kind of mindset that you are trying to champion, the kind of thinking, because sometimes like when I talked to some of my course mates, it was all about getting a job, some quantity surveying job and stuff like that, or structural engineering job, like, and I was thinking about like completely different stuff. So when I met you, Sapon, Hassan, Sali, like those Tale Squad, PK, I was like, nah, Charlie, this is the right group to belong to. and what fascinated me, Kuukuwa, was your master's thesis project, you and Sapon. I think one of you was doing something about, is it biomimicry architecture or something, like some
wild.
Yeah. Oh man, I was like, okay, so can you share with us, like, what did you work on, like, for your master's thesis project?
Yes. So like I said, history was one of my favorite things. So I remember really being fascinated with these archival photos of Kumasi, pre-colonial Kumasi. So they had these, so not so much photographs, but a lot of drawings.
Okay.
By explorers. I used to be really fascinated with them. And then I would look at Kumasi today and what it looked like now. I used to ask myself if there had been no colonization, or if colonization had not been as destructive and violent as it was, which it always is, but if it hadn't, like thinking of like places like Japan, for instance, which had a different encounter with imperial powers, and it was an imperial power of its own, like Kumasi, the Asante kingdom was also an imperial power. They were just subdued by a bigger imperial power in there, right? So I was just thinking, like, yeah, so if like Kumasi would have been allowed to develop, the architecture that just developed naturally, what would they look like now, right? So that was my starting off point for my thesis.
Wow.
Which eventually transformed to like, what would it look like for an architect that has an awareness of what Kumasi was and what it could be, to redesign a portion of Kumasi right now. So my master's looked at this idea of an African architectural renaissance, using ancient Kumasi as a point of departure to redesign Bantama High Street. So that was it in summation. But it was really bringing up like my interest in these archival fragments and histories and historical architecture. Yeah.
Wow. And you made a very important like point, because like, so when you did the project, maybe you can share with us what was your key finding, or your, let's see, the key outcome of that project. So if you were to design, redesign Bantama with that awareness, as you mentioned, I mean, even before that, when I look at Kumasi, like you said, I mean, the impact of colonialism on the architecture, but can you maybe tell us how, maybe with one or two examples, how was the architecture before colonialism and post-colonialism? What was the, let's say, the kind of differences that maybe you can share with us?
Yeah, I'll try to describe.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Images would be best. But I don't know if anyone's familiar with Ashanti region in general. If anyone knows about Bisiase, there's a preserved, it's a shrine, but it's one of kind of examples of a preserved pre-colonial style of Asante architecture. So some of the explorers, so in 1817, the governor of Cape Coast, the British governor of Cape Coast, because by that time they had colonized that area, and they were trying to colonize the Asante Kingdom. And they sent an explorer on an expedition to the interior, asked him to make records and sketches and stuff. His name was Thomas Edward Baldridge. So he traveled, recording his entire journey and recording the place. One of the things that struck me from his record was like when he entered, like when he was describing Kumasi at that time, he said he described toilets. He described something that was just like flushing a toilet, that they had their toilets. They had toilets in the upstairs of their house, and they would pour hot water down to flush.
Oh, wow.
These things. And at that time, they didn't have that.
What?
Yes, they didn't have that in Britain. They didn't have that.
This is the first time I'm hearing this. Wow.
Yeah, so they had like, so not like, don't think of like a WC but they had
a system
had toilets within their buildings, and they had a way to keep it clean so that you didn't smell anything. He noted this because he was so shocked. And if you read British history from that time, you can see why. Because like London was filthy, like people there was excrements in the streets. Entire like big areas would share one really horrible toilet facility. And I think at that time the WC or something similar had been invented, but there was one. It wasn't even in the Queen's house. One somewhere, right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was just a few. So that was really inspirational, right? Like, look at because in one of the things I didn't mention earlier, but in architectural training in our history, like we talk about the pyramids in Egypt, and then when we talk about like our history of like architecture in this area we now call Ghana, it's like these mud houses with thatched roofs or something, and this is a colonial thing because the architecture school at KNUST was set up by British colonial academics, right? And one of them famously said something about how there was no history, architectural history here, right? So these are the kind of people, and these are the kind of things that their study and their research was predicated on, that we had no history. And it was a racist thing, it was a colonial thing, it was intentional to like devalue what we had. That was part of colonization, to say that this thing has no value, this thing did not exist. After they destroy it, they say it does not exist, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, just reading those accounts, and this man made these drawings. He was just so fascinated about the beauty of the buildings, the streets, the order and everything, which I think don't come in our heads when we think of our traditional architecture.
Exactly. Like, I'm hearing this for the first time and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And yeah, all this can really be put at the feet of colonization and the violent erasure, right? But also, like, we now have a duty, we that know better and have seen better have a duty to have make a different image in our minds about where we came from and what like our tradition is, what our history is, not to glorify it per se, but there's a confidence that is in you, that you know that you come from somewhere good. which the colonizers tried to remove from us, right?
Yeah. Wow. I mean, this is revealing. Like I've always maintained that some years ago, when I came across this African proverb that says that until the lion learns to write, tales of the narrative would always glorify the hunter. It changed my like what you just said. Never has it been mentioned in any of the history lessons I've taken, or I mean, I even did some history of architecture and stuff like that in my undergrad. Never was it even discussed or mentioned. So whoever has the pen has the power.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. Wow. Wow. This is.
And this I didn't get it from an architecture textbook. Like I read it, I got it from reading an explorer's account. So usually the way architecture research and history and theory research is like, people will not usually use those sources. Like you will not use a source like that. But I was just like my curiosity and reading everything I could come across. That like I go and I see these little fragments.
Wow. This is an eye opener. I've always thought, especially for, and I was this PDF I came across, I think it was the history of the Asante or something. There's this like long, so many pages, and there was some accounts like that being described about the Asantes. Like, I think the British really fascinated, like how these guys were so organized. They had hierarchies, they have like order, and how they even went through, they had their own judicial systems, and those accounts were, the British were fascinated by these guys.
Yeah. Wow. And it's also interesting to think why they were fascinated by the Asante, because they saw similarities between the way, so what they valued in society, right? This like having a supreme king who's like really tough and powerful, having the judicial system, the order, and the Asante society was a very unequal society, right? A lot of slaves, or even before slaves, there were a lot of slaves. Yeah, so the British usually really loved these kind of ethnic groups. They used to call them martial races. So like the Hausas of northern Nigeria, they even loved them more than the Asante. Wow. Like they were very impressed by them because they showed things that they identified with as civilization.
Okay.
Or more civilized than the other people. But there were other communities who had different systems. So there's this group called the Talensi, not present day northern part of Ghana, that had different systems. They didn't have the same kind of imperialist supreme king system. And if you read and you think about it now, they actually had like a more equitable kind of democratic system and way of sharing power and sharing responsibility in the community. Which, with what we know about politics now, like a lot of things would be better if we didn't have power concentrated in the hands of so few. But so you see communities like this, there's not so much recorded about them because they were not impressed by them. Right? So their prejudice even colored how they wrote our history. So you don't even find a lot of things about women unless it's like and Yasintua is there because she led the war against them, and they're like, who is this woman who would do such? But generally, because in that time in their society, they were really sexist and women were really oppressed. When they came here, they did not even see or see to recruit.
Okay. Yeah. That's something to think about. Yeah, true. Yeah. Wow. So much about us that we don't know. Anyway, I mean, thanks for sharing this. So, I mean, definitely your project from your master's at KNUST. How did you feel when you got the email or the letter that you made it to Oxford? Like seriously, like for me, like that's some of us, that's our dream school. You've been there, done that,
Yeah. Honestly, the email itself saying that I'd been offered admission was not that exciting because like I knew that I couldn't go if I didn't get full funding.
Okay, funding.
So the email that had me screaming was
Okay.
you have a full scholarship email. That one I was screaming because like the you have been admitted was exciting, but I was also like exciting, but yeah. But the full funding one, yeah, that I really went wild. It was really, really exciting.
Wow.
And this was one thing that with these things I always tell people that like it's first someone has to tell you. So I had met someone who had gone there. And
Okay.
it was like I was like, it never crossed my mind that I would go somewhere like that's like Oxford, like do people like me go there, right? But they're like, yeah, just apply. Right? Go to the website, see the thing, do an application, apply. And that was it. Like some people ask me like, yeah, so what did you do? I'm like, yeah, just seriously, literally just applied. Yeah, sometimes we self-select, right? Yeah. And what's the worst? You send it and they reject. Okay, what? You move on with your life.
Yeah. Amazing. I mean, I think about that as well. Like you rightly said, sometimes either we think a bit, I don't know, whether we are not good enough, or I mean, it's such schools are meant for a certain group of people and stuff like that. So we don't.
I mean, they are, but they can't stop us.
Exactly. I like that. I like that. They can't stop us. Yes. I like that. That's a good point. And so now you're at Oxford, right? Like what really was your experience like? Studying. So what was your research based on at Oxford, and how was the experience like? I mean, if you can just share that experience with us.
Yeah, so I continued on my same strands and my interest in history of architecture in Ghana, but a more recent history. So my research in Oxford was more history of like around the 1940s to the 1960s, a style that's called tropical modernism. So in Butcher, your old what they call halls or houses.
Yes, the houses.
Yeah. Some of them are in that style of architecture, with the ventilation blocks and things. Gehe, if you've been to Gehe, the classroom blocks. A lot of schools. I can think of a lot of schools that have Ibri girls. That's the old buildings. That's the style of architecture they are built in. So again, the history of that architecture is told as a history of white people designing and building such things, because all those schools, a lot of them are built by British architects.
Okay.
But there were Ghanaian architects practicing or beginning to practice at that time. There weren't a lot of them, but there were some. So I wanted to know what these people were doing. So that was my research in Oxford, like locating and placing Ghanaian architects in these histories, in these stories as well. But yeah, Oxford, what was it like? I'm trying to not remember. It was, well, academically, like the first term was really tough because like, wow, like I had come from architecture to do this African studies, which was really like a social science.
True.
Right? So there's things that were just so new to me. Even writing essays, like I had never written an essay like since I think JSS even, because I just science and we don't really do
exactly. It's calculations and stuff.
But yeah, it was a really steep learning curve, but I think the thing about like universities at Oxford is more about like the kind of events and people you're meeting, not so much what you're being taught. Of course, that's important as well. But like I think when I think back, just the access and the people, and the opportunities that come from there. It's really unfair. I think it's really unfair because like I tell people this story. So before I applied to Oxford, I was trying to apply straight into a PhD because I already had a master's. So I had applied to different schools in the UK, or I had sent, because with PhD usually you send an email to a supervisor and tell them this is what you're doing. They say if they are interested in you. So before I went to Oxford, I remember I had sent such emails. I got in one reply from this professor in Sheffield, and we're having a conversation. She's like, "Look, your work sounds interesting. You look like you're really like accomplished and stuff, but it would be really hard for you to get in with your masters from Africa."
Wow.
Yeah. So talking to people, they advised me to do another master's.
Okay.
Yeah. So I applied for this master's and I got in. And then when I sent emails after that, including to some of the very same people who ignored my email at first, every single person replied. The only difference in the email was I am Kuukuwa, Oxford.
That's it.
That's it. It is so unfair. Yeah.
Oh my God. I've heard this story so many times that most of my friends who went to Oxford, I mean Ken and all those guys, they said like to get into a PhD program from Oxford, Cambridge, like it's so easy. Like in terms of getting a reply or getting like a positive, it's a no-brainer. Like it just happened.
Yeah.
Wow. But such is life. I mean, yeah.
Well, we have to be different. Like when we're in positions of authority, we have to be different.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the only way it changes. We can't replicate these things that, you only hire people who went to Wesley Girls or Butchie or Oxford. Yeah, we have to break it.
Exactly. We need to break that cycle. And it's crazy. And when I think about you and your journey, like it's really fascinating. So from a science to architecture to social science, then, for me, it tells me like one of the, I was reading an article somewhere was mentioning one of the key, let's say, one of the key skills or qualities you need in the economy that we are, getting into is this adaptability, your ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn, so that kind of, so I see that pattern in your story. So after Oxford, then you decided to get into full-time PhD, or was there a break, like did something happen in between that?
Yeah, I wanted money.
Oh man, I love how straightforward that was.
I worked for a while.
Okay.
I wanted a real job with a real salary for a while. So I did work for a while, but I couldn't stay away from him. So I actually worked in Oxford. So I worked at this institution called the Africa Oxford Initiative, which is like, our tagline is all things Africa in Oxford. So I was a communications manager for this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know, but so I work.
Okay. That's when I used to see you post a lot about. I think there was also the Oxford Africa Business Summit or something.
Yeah, so it was like all these things were
all
like
these things were posting around that time.
Yeah, that was my job for a while, almost 2 years.
Okay.
And then I went to do the PhD at SOAS. Yeah.
So at what point did the buildingeliaca project really like come into the scene, and like what is the motivation? I've seen you have a website, you have a team and all that. Can you tell us a little about the buildingeliaca
initiative? So that comes from, like, again, my long-running interest in history and archives of architecture. So when I was doing my Oxford MSc, one of the sources that I used was this collection of documents at AME, building permits from long ago. And I discovered it again through my Roman Messiah and talking to people. So it's not a known thing. It's not a really known or used resource, but it was through my Roman Messiah talking to people that I discovered it. But it's in a really bad state. Like the room that is kept in is in really poor condition. And a lot of the documents, like some of them will crumble in my hand. I don't know if you know old paper.
Paper. Okay.
Yeah. So I used it for my research, and I guess I could have left it, but it just really hurt me that such a rich resource could disappear and people after me will not be able to use it. So because of that, I was looking for a way to do something about it. So it was my supervisor at the time for my MSc who told me about this British library had this grant for endangered archives to digitize it. So I applied for this grant, and that's how the Building Eliaca project came to be. So yeah, we are digitizing these documents so that there's a digital format available forever, as long as digital formats exist. That's where it comes from. So yeah, I have an amazing team. So there's Lois Corte and Elton Quay. Yeah, I like to think I'm lucky. yeah. Somehow I managed to attract really cool people to work with me.
Yeah, Charlie, the squad, when I was looking at you mentioned the Lois Corte, Elton Quay, and then I looked at the associates, Charlie, the squad, Charlie, wild squad, Charles Lawson.
Yeah, so like that's our core team, and we have associates who help in other things. So they are not like core day to day, but like expertise and time help. And then we have our fellows. Very recently, we have fellows that are doing research and creating and thinking around archives and around this project, who are also really amazing. Yeah, I'm always amazed by their work and their ideas.
And with this project, personally, I think so. Has any of the government institutions showed interest, or have you been approached by them, or have you approached them?
Yeah, so I approached the AMA. So this is like the AMA is a project partner on it because this is their archive.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've had some bad experiences with different people in government institutions, clearly, but the AMA, the AMA director. So this project is done with the permission of the Director of Works. Of AMA, Metro. I think his official designation is Metro Director or something. Dr. Stephen Nketia. Really top notch, yes. So it's good. And also with Prad is a partner, and we're with the late Mr. Ampong. He passed away, unfortunately. But yeah, really helpful. I mean, I have my nightmare stories, which I mean I won't tell on camera.
Of course.
But as far as the project is concerned, with these like these main people with these institutions, it's really been a good thing. And even with AMA, so we even have Joseph Nimensa, who's like an AMA staff who works, Mr. Musa, AMA staff who works, and they're just like really committed to doing this job, which I've found is like we say a lot about civil servants in Ghana, right? And there is a lot to say. A lot of it is about the system and the opportunities available and the lack of capacity of funds to do certain projects. But there's a lot of really passionate people there who are working and really want to work to improve things.
Yeah. And by your own estimation, how long would this take for the archiving? I mean, for the AMA archiving itself, like, do you anticipate is it long term or like
very long term? So our funding for this part of the project actually runs out this year, but we're going to keep going with it. So like, we're going to keep going at a smaller, reduced scale because we don't have funding for staff anymore. But yeah, it's a lot of documents. We've only scratched the surface. So we've digitized over 20,000 documents.
What?
Yeah,
really?
It's still small.
Wow.
Small number. There's a lot. So this is like building permits from 1894 when the Crown Council was established. To date, like every day, if you want to build, you have to do a building permit application.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's a whole lot. Like we can be at it for years.
Yeah, like I'm just thinking we could you could establish like a whole like institution that's all they do, like to whatever. Okay. Wow. That's huge.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, so is there, for example, is there a way for my viewers or people who are watching to kind of contribute to the project, either financially or like, are you looking at raising funds in the near future? And if so, I mean, feel free to share with me. I would help distribute within my network as well. For me, this is crucial.
Yeah, I am thinking about it, especially when the funding from the British Library runs out. We'll have a smaller operation, but to be able to like pay the salary for the AMA staff who's going to keep on the project while so that'll be the main thing to fund. So yeah, I am thinking about what to do to keep it going for a while. Like usually I use like my own funds for that, but I've been a student for a while.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Dry. The bucket is quite dry. But yeah, it's a thing I'm thinking of. So it's really good that you offered. If I'm able to pick up out, because I would like it to be sustainable and really transparent and have a lot of accountability. So yeah, so even if we do the usual crowd-funded sort of thing, I'd like there to be like a structure where we can, like, people will be invested in it, like
exactly,
and they'll know about what's happening. So I have to kind of figure those structures out properly. Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking? Like, even if we look at, like, I'm just really, so if we look at AMA, then look at all the other municipal assemblies. Like, there's nothing like that in Ghana, like where digital archiving has been done for all these. Yeah, Kuukuwa, you need to like establish a whole company, like a whole institution. No, like seriously, because it's like, you need like to establish a whole institute, like with. Yeah, I mean this is huge. It's a huge vision you have. But it go be. So yeah, just keep me updated if there's any way I can support and also distribute to my network. And if I come across any grants and fellowships we can apply to also get some funding, I would let you know. Yeah,
that would be great.
Yeah. So currently, let's look at the projects you're doing for your PhD. Are you in your third year or?
Third year.
Yeah, third year. And what is your project now? Is it also continuing with the same trajectory or?
Basically, yeah, it's the kind of same trajectory, except that now I have a more political tone. So my PhD is actually in politics.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet.
It's in politics and international studies.
Okay.
And I'm looking at basically the politics of architecture. Like basics, one short phrase part of it. But specifically, I'm looking at school architecture.
Oh.
And how nation building and citizenship is mediated and kind of transformed and performed through the building of schools, secondary schools, particularly in Ghana, which is why I said I'll interview you about.
Okay, that's why. Okay, I get it now.
Yeah, so it has a historical component, but it also has a contemporary component. So I'm looking at the history of the building of schools in Ghana from the earliest schools in the castle at Elmina, which were literally overlooking slave dungeons. What that does to the psyche and who comes out of those schools.
Okay.
Yeah, through to more current contemporary. By current contemporary, I'm thinking of schools built in the 50s and 60s as well. Yeah.
Wow. And I think I was telling you earlier that I from a pure layman point of view, I mean I'm not an expert in design, but when I first went to Infanspem, what fascinated me were the buildings, you know. And I say this because I feel that we are more educated by the physical space than by any school material. That's what I think, because immediately when I looked at those buildings, I began to ask questions: who built them? Like immediately you think there's a story behind it, right? So the curiosity is ignited through just by seeing the building. I want to know, okay, so how was this built? So looking fast forward to the current buildings that are being built on the same campus, These are just like putting blocks together and building a square structure. Like there's no, if I look at that building, so mundane, there's no character to the building. So my question, and if we look currently in Ghana today, we kind of, we've equalized, having built glass buildings with air conditioning to be modern or ultra modern. So our definition of modern or ultra modern means that there's glass and there's AC, right? But there's no character. And I don't know how to describe the character, but there's nothing unique about it, right? So from your perspective, I mean, you are the expert here. Are we, and this is from my layman's point of view, I feel that our culture, apart from the fact that we are not learning enough in school, but our physical space is not telling us enough even about who we are as a people by the buildings, the roads and whatever we have. Are we not going to lose with time, that cultural dimension, to our physical space? Are we not losing it already?
Yeah. First of all, I don't think those are layman observations. Those are really astute and really profound, especially for a secondary school students going into that school at the time. I do really believe and argue that buildings in general, architecture in general, affects how we feel, what we think, just how we experience the world around us. In school buildings as well, the architecture projects something. I will disagree that there's no character. I just think it's a different character from what you treasure and connect to emotionally, spiritually, to Infantipim school. It's a different thing, which means different things to different people.
Okay.
So there's people in the school that will gravitate, like more younger people will gravitate more towards the air-conditioned glass AC things as a symbol of a different kind of modernity.
Okay.
What you at that time that you were going saw. And the thing about the cultural thing, it's complicated because so for you going there knowing that the school had been there for so many years, I guess things part of a history that you kind of connect with your forebears, like your forebears, right? But if you think of people who went there, who were there in the 1960s when some white men were building this thing, that connection is not exactly the same.
It's not strong as
Yeah, it's a different kind of connection to it. So it's a difficult thing to kind of conclude on because there's like this really deep emotional and spiritual attachment to the look and style of buildings, right? And there are lots of people that style, that architectural style, that modernism, tropical modernism architectural style is what they associate with Ghanaian identity.
Okay.
Which I'm not saying is not Ghanaian, but it's not as neat as, it's not a neat line.
Right?
So yeah, I find it fascinating. Like I do think there's a character. It might not be a character we find aesthetically pleasing or feel connected to in the same way, but there is something. And I do think that we need to, it's important to have like these kind of like discussions and debates even about national identity and architectural identity, but more in a more expansive way rather than prescribing that everything should be this way. But to understand the difference and where other people are coming from.
Wow, that's a very deep that's why I said you are the experts. I mean, that's just and so you mentioned that this would be my last question, and then I will just show you one or two questions and we wrap up. So our time is up. So you mentioned to me earlier about the competition you were already organizing. Can you maybe tell us a bit about it and what stage you are with that?
Yeah. The competition is kind of my mischievous way of reaching out to people like me, like the opportunities that I wish I had when I was growing up. So it's a competition. It's called Imagining Early Accra, where we invite people to submit anything they create, whether it's fiction, non-fiction, text, audio, painting, whatever, that reimagines a period from Ghanaian history. So it's already ongoing. Like we've actually closed the submissions and it's being judged now by a great esteemed panel of judges. But yeah, it was really a waste because we have a children's competition. We had like these really amazing submissions. Oh, I forget the name of the school right now, but like, we got a class that sent it just filled me with so much joy to see like teenagers and 11-year-olds, 10-year-olds, like,
oh wow,
yeah, like creating things, being inspired by Ghanaian history. They made some of them made models, some of them made paintings and that kind of thing. But really to just kind of bring this love of like learning your history, learning your past, using archival sources. And archival sources, like usually when I say, people think of like some old big dusty room with lots of papers. But your family photographs are archival sources. Like once in a while, like go to your grandparents or your parents, like pick their old photos, ask them what was happening here, what were you thinking? Or ask them where were they when some historical event happened, what were they thinking about it? Like these are stories we should preserve and keep, so that it's not always the lions accounts we read.
yes. Exactly.
I mean, the hunters accounts we read some lions. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So Kuukuwa, I'll just show you a few comments that have come through.
Okay.
This is from Francis. So Francis was also my guest. He's the you know him, right? From the
I know Francis very, very well.
So he says, I just can't wait to work with her on Tutu. So he's been doing the series Tutu, to project the architectural renaissance in the 17th century by the Asantes. I would like to know how this form of indigenous architecture has impacted modern European architecture. So he's looking at the other way around. How?
Oh yeah, I believe it has. Because I think Francis did find out, so I think this is a bit of a mischievous question, because he knows about Picasso being influenced in his art by indigenous African art as well.
Wow.
So yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I think these narratives are not told enough. So we think, Picasso, woke up one day and then he just, but all these guys. And I was reading, this book. I got this book, just arrived today. I'm not sure if you can see it, but it's called African Fractals, Modern Computing and Indigenous Design. Yeah.
Is that Ron Iglash?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. And I was I just got it today. I opened a page where they're talking about algorithms, so algorithmic designs and stuff. And I was fascinated how the early Islamic architecture, really, it was mentioning how, and it's amazing, the calculations and everything, and how I was blown away. I was like, okay, so look, we are not projecting ourselves enough, or I don't know. I don't see where the disconnect is happening, but a lot of things at my adult age, I'm now finding out a lot of things about my own continent and my own people. But anyway.
No, but there's no shame in that. It's not that they've taught you and you have refused to learn. Like people have actively suppressed it. Even like our parents were not taught. I feel like even as we're in a better position than our parents and grandparents, because we have access to sources that they didn't have. But it's been intentional, it's systematic. That's how they colonize you, by telling you there's nothing of worth in what you do. And we, like, now that we know, we share. So like Francis's Tutu project, excellent. Like I can just imagine, like, if I was watching this as a child, just the worlds of imagination and fascination that open within me. And now that we have the tools, we do this so that there's a different outcome for those who come after us.
Yeah. Great. And then another one, Kuukuwa says, in architecture, designing, and engineering, we use softwares like AutoCAD, StartPro, Revit. How did these softwares made your studies easier? So I'm not sure.
Did they make my studies easier?
Maybe your work, but not studies, right?
No, I know. I'm just joking. I know what he's asking. I loved using them. I'm not that tied to them though. Like I really love drawing and hand drawing. I wish there was I'm one of the few people that like actually wish there was more. I know architecture students will hate me for this, but I actually wish there was more. So like, I think the way that the programs are pitched should be different, because this will tell you to do this, do plan, elevation, so that might be doing hand drawing is a lot of work. But I feel like you could present sketches or just like really focused, intentional sketches talking about a design process, that would be different. But yeah, but it makes it easier to get a lot done and meet like the requirements in a short period of time. And I do think I am like, I don't think that sketching is better than modeling straight on the computer. Like I actually think it's a useless debate. I think different people think differently. If you think better by sketching with your hand, yeah, that's you. But some people have like a really different way of engaging with space, and for them, modeling and using these softwares makes it easier, makes it better, and gets them like, look at Zaha Hadid, right? Like,
yeah, oh man.
things are only computational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. So I think there was one here from Alaska. Maoli says, the popular culture of today is the history of tomorrow. So that's in relation to the conversation.
Yes.
I think the last one here I see also from Kuukuwa, who says, has today architecture been of great benefit compared to the olden days?
That's a difficult one, because like it's not the same. Like, it's not really a similar comparison. It's different people with different aspirations coming from different places. So yeah, I'm not one of those that rubbishes what's happening now. Like, I have a whole article of a style of architecture that I named Despite Architecture.
Okay.
After I was at Despite, coincidentally. So I think there's different forms of architectural expression, and each form tells us something about the society and the people and the context. Like everything we build, everything people build has something to tell us, and there's something to learn from it. So it doesn't have to be beneficial in the same way. Of course, it can be better, like things like how so many buildings in Accra don't have like a whole compound, not a single tree. Yeah, some of those things are just silly. And common sense. But overall, like I think it's hard to make one better than the other.
Okay, and the last one that just came from Alaska, it says, I remember sitting right in front during our KNST theater experiment days. Really good to hear. Okay, so I think most of the people watching are excited to see you. So Kuukuwa, I mean, we are 10 minutes above the time, and do you have any last words to share with the viewers? Or?
No, not really. Okay. But yeah, I also remember Maoli on stage.
Yes. Oh, Alaska, I remember those days. Here and now Judge Luis and the squad.
Yeah.
Okay, Kuukuwa, I really want to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate this conversation. I've really learned a lot, and I think a lot of people watching have also learned a lot from you as well. And keep being awesome, and let's keep in touch and make things happen.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for having me, Prince.
Yeah. Thank you, and have a nice weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.